Hey, I'm Susan Palmer of Lead Cat Press, and thanks for tuning into my weekly studio update. This week I have a lot of stuff for you, but first I just want to thank everybody who's been checking out all my videos. I've noticed my views have gone up quite a bit in the past few weeks or so, so thanks for joining me. A lot of times I just think I'm making these videos for myself and for my students, and it's always nice to connect with new students and just the wider community. I don't know, it's kind of a beautiful thing about YouTube, maybe. So, at any rate, you can always skip down below to find the topic that piques your interest, and let me tell you what we're covering this week. For the technique, I talk about injury prevention. For the reading, I have a hot tip for you. For chords, I'm going to show you a very cool C9 chord. For the scales, I'm going to show you a Joe Pass lick that it uses the altered scale. For theory, I'm going to talk about extended chords. For the tunes, I actually just dropped a clip of me playing with a group in Seattle called the Bloodmoon Orchestra. Just a wonderful improvisation group. I'd never met or played with these musicians before we recorded that night, and it was just a lot of fun. I really miss performing and playing out. I'm over here in Maine, just kind of waiting for the pandemic to kind of peter out a little bit more, so immune-compromised folks like me can get out into the world again. I have a pro tip for you on how to improve your ears, and I just want to remind you again of applying and internalizing all of these topics is like a totally different game than just listening to this stuff and kind of understanding it. And that's where having a really good teacher can really, really help you. And, obviously I like finding new students from YouTube. That's always great. But, it's regardless if it's me or somebody else, just find somebody who's going to put you on a clear path that has some structure, that's going to coach you through all of this stuff so that you can be applying it to your own playing. I think that's really my bottom line as far as teaching is, I want students to find the best teacher for them. And I think I'm the right teacher for a lot of folks. But I'm always happy to recommend other teachers if I'm not the best fit. So anyways, let's get right to this stuff. I'm really excited. Instead of showing you another technique exercise that's come up this week in my studio, I actually wanted to talk about something a little bigger than that. Hand injury, or actually hand injury prevention. So this is very personal for me because I was injured for about 12 years. I could barely play the guitar. I could just play it enough to teach, really, and it was from my very late 20s into my 40s. So I have a lot of thoughts on this. And, besides finding a really good physical therapist, what helped me the most was finding guitars that actually fit me. And when I talk about that, I'm referring to two things, really. For me personally, it has to do with the scale length. So that's the distance from here to here. This is a 1959 Music Master. And I think the scale length on this is, I think it's 22.5 inches. It's ridiculously short. So that means that it's easier to play all of my chords. It's what also makes it easier for me to play the chords and just play for extended periods of time is that the neck width itself is very narrow. Down at the nut, it's 1.5 inches. And I have a couple other guitars that also have those specs that for me just really fit my body. They made it so I wasn't straining at all when I was playing, and it got me back into playing guitar again, which was something that I kind of thought for a while was never going to happen again. So I really owe a lot to these vintage guitars that have these specs. I did write an article about this a little while ago, just kind of showing you my journey in finding guitars that have these specs or similar specs. So I'll link to that in the discussion for you. But my big piece of advice is find a guitar that actually fits your body. I want to share a trick with you that I use with my superstar guitar students that helps them internalize the system for counting. And I'm going to demonstrate page 23 in my book, The Guitar Lesson Companion Volume 1, which all my students have, and you should too. You can order it at leadcatpress.com. And on page 23, I introduce single eighth note rhythms. So we've got some syncopated rhythms on this page. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually read the last line, so line 8, backwards. I'm going to count it the same way as I do forwards, but I'm going to read it and play it backwards. And it always tells me something interesting that's happening in a person's brain when they do this exercise. And if you're a student of mine, well, you can look forward to that at our next lesson. So anyways, here's the line 8 played backwards. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So notice my alternate picking did not skip a beat. Here's a really cool C9 chord, and it pairs really nicely with that F7 chord that we worked on last time. The notes in this C9 chord, I've got B flat on the D string there. I have D on the G string. My first finger is playing E on the B string, and then my pinky is playing C. So I'm going to jam on that, and then I'm going to share with you the chord diagram so you can learn it. I want to share another jazz lick with you this week. This is one that you can play over a G7 altered chord. And here are the notes that I'm playing. I have D sharp, B, B flat, A flat, C sharp, and B. And this is directly from the G altered scale. So that's where those notes are coming from in there. This is a Joe Pass lick that I probably learned because when I'm listening to music and walking around, I probably heard it and thought, wow, that's really cool. I want to learn that. So I took a screenshot of the track on my phone that I was listening through, and so I could learn it later. And when I got home, I probably put it into my audio stretch app, which allows you to slow stuff down and loop small sections of pieces. It gives you the opportunity to learn things by ear. So I'm always telling my students that I think it's really important to be noticing when certain phrases really resonate with you, because those are the pieces of music, those are the motifs and the melodies and the chords and the rhythms that are a part of you already. And so I always view it as a musician's job to notice those things and to take them apart and make them become a part of your own playing. That's your responsibility as a musician. So that one really spoke to me, that Joe Pass lick, and from the altered scale. Maybe we'll talk about those altered scales another time. This week I had a student who was asking about extended chords, and specifically he was asking what the heck is an A13 chord. So I want to give a brief explanation for figuring out extended chords. So I have other videos that cover triads, seventh chords, and all that stuff, including extended chords, is in my book, The Guitar Lesson Companion Volume 1. But just to give you a very brief explanation for it, when we write out a major scale before we construct the chords from that major scale, I usually have students number the notes. So C, if we were doing C major scale, C would be 1, D is 2, E is 3, and so forth. To find the extensions, you just have to write that scale again. So if C is 1, C is also 8. D is 2, it's also 9, and so on. And so you could just, you could write out that scale and just keep your numbers going, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That would give you all of the notes that show up for those extended chords.